A, approve agenda as submitted. Item B, receive and place on file all notices pertaining to this meeting. And item C, receive and place on file all materials having any bearing on this meeting. Anybody want anything pulled up? All right, Mr. McLean.
I move that the items listed under the consent agenda be approved, accepted, and ratified as presented.
Second.
Your vote, please. That passes 8-0. There we go. Okay. Public hearings, there's none. Resolutions, none. Ordinances, none. Public forum. Anybody here for the public forum? Seeing none. Discussion regarding fireworks. Okay. You know, it was changed last year. Is that correct?
Yes.
And this is the first year we had an extended sale and an extended fire work session. And I think it's just time for a review, and we'll start with that review and comments from the City Council.
I had quite a few calls that said it was too long. What did we do that from
We went from 4 days to 7 days versus 10 days. 10 days it's allowable by the state.
Well, I know it was gone into the 5th, and my neighbor still at 2 o'clock in the morning on the 6th was firing something that I know he did not buy here in the state of Nebraska. 'Cause it didn't rattle the windows, it rattled the walls. And yeah, I got quite a few calls on them. They think it's too long. 10 days is a bit too much.
The calls I got, most of them were, ended it on the 4th, not have it on the 5th. And that's probably the majority of them was that. They didn't really talk too much about the extended time, but not having it on the 5th, ended on the 4th.
I agree. I see no reason for it to be on the 5th. That's beyond the deal. I mean, I know it rained, torrential downpours, I think, as I recall, on the 4th, and most people weren't able to enjoy it. So then what do you do? I mean, I'm absolutely in agreement with you, Dwayne, what you're saying on the 5th. That was most of the phone calls I received, and the 3 emails I got, 2 of them were, one was 4, one was, I'm not sure what he is, and trying to figure out how rabbits have anything to do with the 4th of July, but whatever. But we did that to help the people who are selling fireworks, to extend the selling part of it. And I did talk to one of the major guys in town, and it was beneficial for them that people weren't going out of town to the other communities. They're within 10, 12 miles of here and purchasing their fireworks. They're buying them through the local facilities here.
As many of you know, I've been in the fireworks business for about 25 years. None of it's ever been in Beatrice, but it's in another town in the state. Kearney's done it a lot of different ways over the years, and they've cut it short, and they've added to it, and they've gone around. And the neat thing is that for a lot of people is they want to make sure that there's a weekend in there. Okay. My recommendation to us tonight is, one, first of all, how in the world did we ever allow the 5th? That one just floors me, because the state makes you stop at midnight of the 4th, whether it's sales or whatever it is, but it is what it is, and I don't think that's going to be the problem. I think that we've learned our lesson that we will not do it on the 5th. But getting back to the period that allows a weekend, we went from 4 to 7. I talked to numerous fireworks people, and the largest one is the Knights of Columbus, and the information that I got from them for the most part was the juice, the squeeze wasn't worth the juice, or the juice wasn't worth the squeeze, however we look at that. To go from 4 all the way to 7, they had a lot of other things to do, but the amount that they sold was very small more than what they sold at 4. And I'm not sure, Tim probably heard from a different guy. And I'm not necessarily using them as my recommendation, but if you go to a 6-day deal and you look at the calendars as they roll through the next 10 years, you either get a Friday and a Sunday, or a Saturday and a Sunday, or a Friday and a Saturday. And so 6 days is always going to give you 2, if not all 3 of the weekend days. And that's what a lot of people look at. So my recommendation would just be go to 6, It gives those people that didn't want 7 at least some thought. If you have pets and you are a night worker, it's a nuisance, but it's something you've had to learn to live with. I've had pets that have been that same way. 4 days is bad with a pet that doesn't like fireworks. 8 days is forever. 10 days is forever. That's why I think you should go to 6, because of the timeline and how it allows you to at least get 2 out of the 3 days on the weekend, and then knowing that we'll never go to the 5th again.
Are you at 6 for shooting or 6 for selling?
Yes.
Both. Okay.
I don't know why we allowed shooting on a day we didn't allow selling. How did that happen, gentlemen?
Well,
You know the state makes you stop at midnight on the 4th. And you can always do your own special little deal.
It happened because we said we were going to try this and then see what people thought of it after we did it once. So.
yeah, I mean, we knew we were going to have a discussion after. I was surprised that it took 5 months to get it on the schedule, and then 1 month after the 4th of July, we're already talking about it, but that's neither here nor there.
That's just my personal recommendation.
No, I don't disagree with you. The most, I mean, anybody who sells them they can open up 4 days, 5 days, 6 days. That's up to them. I know they're all mostly run with volunteers. Most of our groups that are selling fireworks are doing it for, I'll use Beatrice Wrestling Club for one tent. I know there's a couple softball teams at different tents and baseball teams, and that's where they're
Churches.
getting their funds to support their athletics. And there's other clubs that are, besides athletics that we're selling as well. So that's all I got.
Well, I had one email from a guy in my ward that supported it and said, thanks you for the extra days. I don't know if he sells them or if he's just really into fireworks. That being said, between the phone calls I took, the people that stopped me on the street, the emails I got, it's running about 30 to 1. I'm not quite sure exactly how we got to 7 days as well, David. I was here, but I didn't vote on it. I didn't vote for it. It's not that I didn't vote on it. My personal preference is it would be on the 4th of July between 6 and 8 p.m. But that's my, but I understand that my personal preference isn't everybody's personal preference. So I do think that it needs to be addressed. The 4th of July is a holiday. I get your comment, David, about the weekend, but I still think it should be limited to a 2 or 3 day period for selling. And I don't care if you sell them, but you shouldn't be able to fire them. And it's there's rules about everything, and that's what we're here to do, is set rules. And so if it was up to me, I'd reduce it to 2 to 3 days. So I know we're not making a decision tonight. For you people in the audience, this is just a discussion. But I would vote to support a 2 to 3 day firing period that you can shoot them off. And if it's longer than that, I'll vote against it like I did last time. So that's where I'm at with it.
I'm not going to be a lot of help here, Bobby, because I only had like 2 or 3 emails, period, on this. I get a lot of emails, but not on this. And I do have dogs, and they're scared to death of this stuff. So I take them to bed in the basement when this happens. But what I was most impressed with, whatever the days were, that at least in my neighborhood, they paid attention to the hours that we had. And I'm sure it wasn't that way everywhere, but it was around my place. That I was surprised that if it said 9 o'clock, they actually shut them off around 9 o'clock or around where I'm at. So that surprised me more than anything else.
I think I like Dave's suggestion. It's somewhat of a compromise, and I would certainly support that if that's what we end up doing.
See, I voted for it the first time around with some reservations, and I told Bob that I'd like to readdress it after the year, which we're doing now. So I'll be kind of curious to hear. I heard from the members of the third ward that weren't real satisfied with the length of the firing, and so I'll be kind of curious what the public has to say, so we can kind of adjust it to make some kind of a compromise where we're all can kind of come out. I like some of the ideas of this shortening the days up. So kind of curious what the public has to say.
Anybody out there?
I'm sure those guys in the front row don't like it, so.
If it doesn't rain.
Any public comment?
Well, Mike has already heard all of this. Close your ears, Mike. I am Rita Heido. I live at 208 Sherman Street. First, I'm going to start out by saying I was very disappointed because you would have seen me when you guys were originally discussing this had you not voted 3 times the very first time you talked about it. I would assume somewhere along the line when they decided to have 3 votes, it was so you could have 1 vote and then get public input and second and third. So first there's the disappointment. I do have dogs. I do work during the day and heard banging in a concrete block house with windows closed for every stinking night. I like the races, but I wouldn't want to hear the races for 8 days, morning, noon, night. I like the air raid siren. Wouldn't want to hear it 8 days, morning, noon, and night. The sad thing with fireworks is they don't just stay in your yard. The sound travels. So every neighbor that is around you for a couple, 3 blocks, or maybe even more, gets to enjoy your support of our country. And I am sure everybody shooting those off are huge patriots, as we all are, and we love our country. Only I do it by waving a flag, having a picnic, watching old movies. I don't bother my neighbors and ask them to enjoy my fireworks when it's going off. And yes, it breaks my heart that my old dog that can't hardly walk somehow got down our basement stairs to huddle in a closet down in the basement when these started going off. So I heard from a lot of people. I run a little store, and I tell you, days afterwards, heard from tons of people. But you guys are kind of scary. And this is kind of awesome to come up in front of people and talk about this to you. So I'm sorry that this place isn't packed, because from the people that talked to me, with or without animals, I heard from somebody who had a mother that at 11 o'clock at night had neighbors firing fireworks in her driveway. So please, guys, take a look at this. Why do we have the 4th of July? Is it to support charities? I love the charities. I'd give them money not to sell the darn things. Okay? But are we honoring our country? Isn't this the birth of our nation? Is this to make charity money? Is this to bang off things day after day and night after night? And there's a lot of people, Terry, that did not pay attention to the hours.
I wasn't trying to speak for the whole town.
No, I
just
know.
said my neighborhood.
You're
That's all
one
I
lucky
said.
guy, but even then, I was going to play you. I have something on my phone where I'm sitting in my house, concrete block, windows closed, and bang, ba bang, ba bang, ba bang, ba bang, ba bang, ba bang. Terrible.
If that was at 2 o'clock in the morning, it was my neighbor doing it.
No, that's when it was at a reasonable time. Well, 9, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, I can't quite remember,
Becky
somewhere in
and I
there.
both come up out of the bed after that.
Yes. So that's all I have, gentlemen. Thank you for letting me talk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob, just real quick here. I want to thank you for your comments and stuff. I have elderly parents, and my mother called me, wondering what was going on. She thought something was happening with the furnace in the house and things like that, just as you were talking about. And, I tried to explain it to her, but I went over and about that time, and I got there, went off, down the street. I said, that's what it is, it's the fireworks. But she thought something, she's 94 years old and is still having a home, my dad, and they didn't like it. They thought something was going on with their house. So I understand what you're talking about.
Shirley McGuire, 722 North 7th. I don't know for sure, but I thought when it came to you all for the council, it was to fix the hours. Is that correct?
No.
It wasn't?
The
to
initial
fix the
proposal
hours?
was to extend the selling and shooting times.
Okay, all right. I was mistaken. Because I know that there was no hours on it before, from working, because I work at the police department. But anyway, I thought it was just fine the way it was. I just wish that the hours would be put in there so we would have known that. But it was a very long time, and I worked a lot of extra hours that week. And 3 days, no sleep, no problem. 8 days, no sleep, was not good. And I'm sure, I told myself that I'm getting older. And I never wanted to say this to anybody, but I couldn't handle it. And I know there was a lot of other people in our neighborhood that were not lucky enough for it to stop when they were supposed to. And I know for years, that's a thing also from the police department. Everybody calls afterwards. And within a minute, people were calling. So anyway, I just.
You mean the minute after the?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, right after, especially the 5th.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway.
Well, I think the point is, and I spoke with you about this, so I know how many people actually called the police department.
Yeah.
And the point is, and I had one of the people that called me at Lisbon Ward said, I would have called the police, but the first thing they do is come to your house and knock on your door, and then all
They
your
want people
neighbors
to know.
know exactly who did it. And he said, they're still my neighbors. And I said, I get that, but the point I was trying to make was, if you've reached a point where you actually call the police, you've reached a breaking
You're
point.
over the point.
Yeah, you're past that.
Yeah.
Because you're weighing that out. Is this really that important? It's that important. It's something, and you had more than a dozen. You had a couple of dozen calls.
Yes.
So yeah, it's important.
Yeah.
Before you leave, Shalina,
On the 5th?
What? I'm sorry.
On the 5th, you had a couple of dozen calls?
No,
Or
over
all
the
the way
time
through-
frame,
okay.
over the end. I think it started, I can't remember what day I told you exactly. We started
Yeah, I don't
getting
remember
calls
either.
on like the 2nd, I think I looked, and from the 2nd to the 5th, we had those. But there was more of them on the 5th than any other, because I'm sure they wondered why they're
Right.
still going off on the 5th, a lot of people, because they don't really pay attention to what's happening here, unfortunately.
I want to build something before I actually ask Selena this question, because I've known her for a long time. My dogs absolutely hate fireworks. They bury themselves underneath my chair. I can't say that I'm a fan of them. However, in the old days, it was 4 days of shooting, right? 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and the 1st. And you've been a dispatcher for,
22 years.
okay. You don't have to answer this. I'm just going to ask you a question and see if you can tell me, in 22 years, from June 24th to June 30th, approximately how many citations were written for people shooting fireworks before July 1st? You don't have to answer that question. I mean, you got any idea?
Not very many, but I
Not very
we can
many.
look it up if
Okay.
we need to.
So what I'm saying is, guys, dates don't really stop people from shooting fireworks, and I'm sure there ain't a police officer going to write a 7-year-old kid a misdemeanor ticket for lighting firecrackers. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any more? Good.
Dana Hido, 208 Sherman Street. I always thought the 1st through the 4th was a nice compromise for those of us that would prefer it if we didn't have them at all, which is me. I do have animals. They hate them. I hate them. They bother me. The incessant noise all the time, for days on end, drives me crazy. Okay, so fine. I would have preferred if we didn't have it. And then I think, oh, we could just do what Lincoln does, right? Just the 3rd and the 4th. I think they still do that. They used to anyway. Okay, but then people want longer. Okay, so we had a nice compromise, the 1st through the 4th. Easy to remember. 1st through the 4th. That's when you could shoot them off, when you could buy them, when you could shoot them off. And we didn't go the all 10 days. It was a nice 4-day. And then all of a sudden, now they can shoot them off. When did we start? 28th? 28th, and then the 5th for some insane reason. I have yet to figure that out. And when you said, oh, but we had this thunderstorm on the 4th, that didn't stop anybody in our neighborhood. They were still going off. It's pouring rain, and the fireworks were still going off. So
That just kept the stink and the smoke down.
It is, I get some people really enjoy it. I appreciate it can be a good fundraiser. We have lots of rules and laws on the books that perhaps hurt other businesses, right? We don't let businesses just do whatever they want. There are rules that they have to follow. So I don't know that in this case of saying, okay, 4 days is what we want. Sure, you always have a few people that might go against the law and shoot them off ahead of time. But again, we don't change the rest of our laws just because some people break them. So, all right, so people are breaking them, so let's just make it easier for them to and decide that, okay, they can break the law. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So I guess my point is I would really like us just to go back to the 1st through the 4th. It was a good compromise for those of us that would prefer not having them, to those that would prefer to have 10 days. A nice 4-day was, like I said, nice compromise. Thank you, John.
Thanks.
Let's speak on the weekends. We had ours, and I'm like them, I don't like them, but I've got grandkids that love them. But we had ours on Sunday the 3rd. So that would have fit in the 1 through the 4th. They still blew up enough money to pay 3 rents.
Somebody else.
Vicki Kane, 810 North 7. I'm not going to offer a suggestion on any of this because, quite frankly, I would be thrilled if it was just on the 4th. And if it rained on the 4th, we did it on the 5th, just like we used to when I was a kid. We had them out at the fairgrounds, and it's like if it rained, they had them on the 4th. If it rained, they did them on the 5th. And I remember how special the 4th was as a kid, because you wake up, it's the only day, so you'd get up and you'd it was so exciting. I'm also going to suggest that there is actual costs involved in my life, in my home, when there's a thunderstorm or when there's fireworks going off for 8 days, because my dog is not scared. I wish she would hide under the bed, but she instead decides to outnoise the noise. So she knocks over lamps. She ripped my curtains down. And this went on for 8 days or whatever it was. It was a nightmare. And I'm shaking right now still. Just I was so angry and so upset about it because I couldn't stop it. I couldn't do anything about it except just start redecorating my house. And I at work was really not popular because I was up until 2 a.m. every night for the full week, and I had to go to work in the morning. I work in a New York company. The company is based in New York City, so I'm working an hour before everybody else, and I could not work. I mean, this is really, really, really impacting my life, and I just wanted you guys to know that. And so I would just say, I think 4 days is way too long anyway. I mean, I don't know why the weekend is important. You can have a party without fireworks. You can celebrate the 4th of July with a barbecue and lawn dart. Well, you can't use lawn darts anymore, but whatever it was, you can have fun and just save the fireworks for the 4th. I mean, I feel very emotional about this, so I just want to share that with you guys. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? If not, we will take everything under advisement. Probably we'll see a few modifications to this particular ordinance coming up in the next month or so. I guess we got a lot of time before the 4th of July of next year. So thank you very much. Okay, we'll start with the updates from the city council committees. We got those 3. So start with Mr. Fairbanks.
I apologize. We haven't probably got as far along as we should have. I've been gone. I've been home about 3 days in the last month, and so let me apologize for not getting this further along. But let me share with you what is going on. So we've taken bids to tear down the mechanic shop, which is for you guys that took the tour. It's the big wood structure at the west side of the property, and we've got a bid for we're going to award that, and that's going to be down. And I didn't ask you when.
So the shop we're building, that we're tearing down, is not the wood shop in the back.
Right.
It is the brick building there.
Adjacent.
That is, if you came around, you kind of drove around, it's the one that's in the farthest northwest corner.
Right, it's the one that was collapsing.
Yes.
Yeah, the roof's coming down.
And the contract's for it to start in September.
Okay, so we're in the process of applying, there you go, thank you for explaining that. So we're in the process of applying for the Brownfield grant, although that has been changed. Remember all that it used to be 80-20, now it's 50-50, and we're getting the rest of that together. I've had a conversation with Tobias about getting money in the budget this year, next year, and following years. I think there's enough money there to start some of the demolition in the next couple of years. Definitely not money in the budget to get it purchased. The remainder of the structure, as you're all aware, there's 17 acres. It sets in 8 different properties, and we need the 2 big ones is our problem. I've been in contact with the good folks in Lincoln, and I emailed the EPA. I've taken a conversation with Tobias about today. I emailed the EPA about a couple of different aspects. Crickets. I got nothing back. Didn't really expect that, but we're going to keep on that. I did talk to Senator Fisher's office has a lady that just writes federal grants and looks for federal grants, and I spoke with her today, and although she said there's nothing so far, she's looking at it specifically, but she did say it would help if we owned the whole property. That's part of the problem there too, but she said there are some grants available. So in some aspects, we're moving forward. In some aspects, we're just kind of at a hold, but it's mostly my fault because I haven't been here to kind of give it. It looks like we're moving ahead, but I haven't really been here to give it a push, but I'm back for a while, hopefully.
Well, at least in Ted's defense, they also he took a field trip. And,
Yeah.
you know, Hal found out that it's a little frustrating of all the things that has to happen in order for us to really move forward.
Yeah, so I mean, for Gary and Terry were there with us, and as we sat through there, and we spent a few hours with them, and you know, I listened to them, and I think as they were explaining it, because this is how do you eat the elephant? You know, it's great big, and you know, it's just one bite at a time. But you know, part of my problem is where do you start? And you know, we'd sit and listen to these guys, and you'd think, oh, that's where we start. And then they talk a little bit further, and I go, oh, that's where you have to start. And then, you know, that moved on about 6 or 8 places. But I think we've got a starting point. I mean, speaking with Tobias today, I think we have a definite starting point, and that's owning the property. But hopefully in the next 4 or 5 weeks, I'll be able to give you a little more detailed time, not necessarily a timeline, but a definite structure on what we have to do. Starting where our true starting point is and where the end point is. And I don't know how many weeks or months that takes, but I think it's probably a little closer to years, but we're getting there. So, all right.
Gary?
Well, our committee's met a couple of times now. Tonight on the council meeting, there's a piece on there that we're going to take off a bunch of outdated and obsolete things like occupation taxes on rope walkers, acrobats, shuffleboards, pinball machines, and stuff like that. It's awful hard to enforce any of those. It's a start. None of this stuff is easy. And we've got more work ahead of us, and we're going to try to have another meeting shortly. But we made some progress to get some of the outdated stuff out. And it takes up quite a bit of space in the old code book, so we're making some progress.
Good. Gary, thank you.
Well, there's just a lot going on downtown all over everywhere. If you've been driving through it, there's cranes everywhere, whatever you call those things that go up on roofs and stuff up there. We met again on Ella Street, and we're trying to finalize a little bit further on what kind of improvements we can or cannot do along Ella as far as beautification is concerned, all the way down to storm sewers that are needed. So we need to go a bit further on that. Been helping 3 or 4 different people with their downtown buildings, seeing if we can assist them in any way to do some improvements on those individual buildings before we get into any problems with them. Or kind of winding down the first $400,000 grant that's been out there a couple of years now that we awarded. It's getting down to just a few people that still need to do what they said they were going to do. And if you remember, that grant was a grant where they had to put a certain amount of money down before we could even do a type of a match. And that really is made a lot of difference downtown already. And tonight, there's another one for $485,000, I think. Thanks to Tobias and Taylor for putting that together. You guys will be talking about it to see whether or not we can get it funded again. Chances are probably a little less we can get them back to back, but we're going to try and see if we can get it again. We also have contacted all of our senators and congressmen relative to grants. Also, we just got another response from Senator Ricketts today, so that's been going okay. We'll see how far we can get with those people. So we've been busy, Bob.
Yep, absolutely.
That last grant was outstanding. I've had more comments on how good the downtown starting facades and such.
Okay, that concludes our work session. Next regular city council meeting is August 21st, 2023, 7 p.m. in the BPS Administrative Board Building Board Room right here. There will be a special meeting held on August 28th at 7 p.m. right here for the purpose of, I believe it's a public hearing on our budget, our 2-year budget. So with that, we will have our regular city council meeting as scheduled at 7 p.m. I can have a motion for adjournment.
I move that the meeting be adjourned at 6:30 p.m.
Second.
All those in favor? And that passes 8-0.